Hi, today we're going to talk about how to create different functions given certain things. So here it says, given the equation, make the graph and table. So I love this. We're given the equation. I'm going to start with graphing because honestly, this is pretty great. Here, nothing is added or subtracted, so that means the y-intercept is 0. And then my slope is negative 1/3, so negative means I go down. 1/3 means I go down 1 to the right 3, down 1 to the right 3, down 1 to the right 3, and I can do that a few times and work backwards, and boom, I have my line or my graph. Next, so I've done the graph, and now I also have to make a table. For a table, my personal preference is to always use the x values -1, 0, 1, 2. That's my personal preference because it shows you a little bit of negative, it shows you 0, and it shows you some positives. But really, if you're on your homework, maybe there's already a table pre-made for you and you just have to fill in the y values. It depends on what you're doing. So here, I have a few options of how to do this. I'm just going to use the equation. I'm going to plug in the x value and solve for y. So -1/3 times, not x anymore, but times -1 is, well, negative times a negative is a positive. 1/3 times 1 is just 1/3, so y is 1/3. Then 0, so -1/3 times x, well, -1/3 times 0, anything times 0 is 0, so that was great. Okay, now 1, -1/3 times 1, anything times 1 is itself, so it's -1/3. And then 2, -1/3 times 2 is -2/3. There you go. So that's making a graph and a table given the equation. Now let's take a look at, given this table, this is a new table, it's a different problem, make the graph and equation. Well, I'm going to start by making the graph. That's just plotting these points. So if x is -1, y is 5. So I go back -1 and up 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now if x is 0, y is 6. So I go x is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, y is 6. If x is 1, y is 7. And if x is 2, y is 8. There we go. I was given this and I made a graph, but I have to make a graph and an equation. Now, two options. I could look at the table and write the equation, or I could look at the graph and write the equation. I'm going to look at the table and write the equation because it says given the table. So that's just going to be my preference for now. But heck, I mean, you could totally just look at the graph and figure it out. So first I need a slope. For a slope, I just choose any 2 points. Honestly, I like to choose the top 2 just because I don't have to think about, oh, which 2 points should I choose? Now I subtract the two y values, 5 minus 6. 5 minus 6 is -1, that's the top of my fraction. And I subtract the two x values, -1 minus 0, it's just -1. Now I simplify as much as I can. Anything divided by itself is 1. So my slope is 1 times x, which, I mean, really, I don't actually have to write the 1. I could just write x. And now my y-intercept. My y-intercept is when x is 0, what is y? So I do happen to have that here. X is 0, so it's just plus 6. If I didn't have this, then I'd have to work forwards or work backwards to solve if x is 0, what is y? So now I started with a table. I was able to create a graph and an equation. Let's take a look at one more. This is given the graph, make the table and the equation. So here I have a graph. Let's start with making a table. My personal preference is always -1, 0, 1, 2. Okay? So that's what I would like you to do. If you're on like a homework assignment or something where it already gives you a pre-made table, you just fill in whatever values it asks you to do. Okay, so now if x is -1, I'm just going to use the table and figure out x is -1. Okay, this is a little bit difficult, but that's halfway through. I can see that it took 2 points to get from a nice, between nice points, which means that this is halfway in between. So I had to go backwards 1 and down 1, 2, 3, 4.5. So I went down 4.5. X is 0. So x didn't move side to side at all, and it's down 1, 2, 3, 4. X is 1, so I go to the side 1, 1, 2, 3 and a half. 3 and a half. And then x is 2, 1, 2. And I go down 1, 2, 3. Sorry, so these should all be negative. So I've made the table. Now I have to make the equation. I'm going to use this graph and write an equation. So y equals, I need to find a slope. So I'm going to find 2 nice points. Boom, here we go. Up 1 to the right 2 means I go up 1 to the right 2. So the slope's 1 over 2. If you needed to, or if it was possible, you'd simplify as much as you can. This one doesn't need to be simplified. Times x, and then it's plus the y-intercept. Well, in this case, the y-intercept is actually 1, 2, 3, negative 4. So it's not plus 4, it's minus 4. So there, I've looked at a graph and I was able to make a table and an equation. So we have just spent the time and we're able to now go between any 3 of those things. A graph, table, or equation, we can start with any of them and create the other 2. Good job.